We are continuing with needling of the felts after they were hit with a felt softening solution today. One rule I have is to try not to wear a watch when I'm doing this work, because if it catches, it could break a hammer or break something else on the piano. I just don't want to see that. Look at that, how nicely it felts. And you'll notice I stay away from the strike zone. I can come in close, but I don't want to get too close to it or right on it, because you don't want to soften the hard hit core. And the hard hit core is this sector right here and back. And the needling tool is extremely powerful to soften up a hammer and make it a gentler tone. I underestimated the potential of needling. It just didn't seem to me to make sense that it could have that much impact, but it does. It is very slow work, and you have to be very patient with what you're doing. But a lot of times, when you're restoring an old unit and you're trying to use old parts, you're going to be facing some real challenges with the hardness of the hammers. They get hard as rocks sometimes, and even if they're not hard as rocks, you're going to find that the tone is way too percussive, way too hard. So I do want to mention that there's a lot of wives' tales out there, and one of them is that hammer softening compounds don't work. Well, the modern ones do, from Howard Piano Industries. I use them and they do work, but you gotta know how to use them. You can't just go with a solution. You have to go in with the needling tool afterwards and work them like I'm doing. And then you'll feel the difference as that needle can go into that felt. What does the needling do? It breaks up the hardness of the fibers. These are wool fibers. There's the hit spot right there. You do not want to be needling there, because when you hit the piano hard, you want a very, very light, soft kind of, and I take a little brush and just do that. Or an iron. You can use a hammer iron, which I have, to work the hit spot. But you needle around it so that it's kind of like got a hard center with a bunch of soft stuff that can kind of soften that whack. But you must have this area very stiff, so I do not poke a needle into it. Do not work that area. I don't normally put much softening agent there either, unless the tone on the piano is really hard. And I hold this hammer very hard in my hand because I'm pushing this needle in. And you just can't, it isn't going to go in just with a light tap. You got to come in here and you got to really apply pressure, like 5-10 pounds of pressure. And you got to do this kind of needling, the real thing. But sometimes these hammerheads are like little rocks, especially if they're over 80 years old. And then you got your hands full trying to needle those. You can't hardly sometimes you can't get a needle in unless you use softener, and if you try, you'll just bust off the needle. I've done that too. This might work. If it doesn't, I have another game plan, which is that on this unit, these were all down to the wood. And so I was sent a nice used set of old hammers by a large shop as a favor, and I put them on. And they have a lovely tone, but starting here, the ones that were on the unit, they're hard from here to here, hard sounding. Or actually it was from here to here, all the way up to here. And so I'm either going to soften them or I'm going to take the other heads and put them in, because I want the unit to have a warm, rich sound. And you know, that ain't going to come from speaking to it sweetly. It takes this needling work to just break up the fibers. Might work, might not. I would say I've got a good chance it will work. These are still damp. And the reason I'm needling them now is that I can needle more aggressively when they're damp because they're softer than when they're dry. So I'm going to come in now and give them a good poke. And you got to be careful. They'll stick you. These needles. There's blood on a unit that I worked on. One drop. There's that. And it's just take time. I mean, each one of these is a minute or two. So you're going to be doing this for a while when you do it. Come in, push. Look at that. That's nice entry into the felt there. That's even better than what you get with a new hammer. I could go to a single needle, and I thought about it, but I can accomplish that kind of by doing it sideways like this. And then I reshape it a little bit with my hand. Of course, you know that your felt's a little softer. You could do that. And put it into the shape. It's like any cloth when it gets damp or wet. It's malleable. And it's good. See, I can almost mimic the single needle at this point by setting the lower one in, and then I can come here. There is no question that this softening agent is working. I never could have gotten anywhere close to this softness without it. So again, that's Howard Piano Industry, Steve Howard. He has a lot of tools and a lot of chemicals, a lot of know-how on how to do this work. You can see this head deforming as I push. I actually have to almost reset the felt in a new shape just to leave it where I want it. It's like any wet cloth, you know, but I can do things when this stuff is damp that I cannot do otherwise. I may be better off right now going to a single needle on this. I don't know. See, I can put it on its side like that. Do a nice job too. Come down here. 1, 2, 3. This is work for somebody who's very patient. Feels comfortable working with their body. See, I can actually reshape the felt right now because it's wet or damp. Okay. Thump, thump, thump. I won't play the piano until they're dry because they'll compress too much. They'll change their shape. They're not very stiff right now. They're not hard. That's why I'm needling them now, because I can make a tremendous impact on the softness right now. Because they're damp. Like damp clothes, they're soft.